You see, motivation is one of the most misunderstood forces on the planet. People treat it like a requirement, like something you must feel before you act. But motivation is unreliable. It disappears the moment things get uncomfortable. It vanishes when results don't show up fast enough. If motivation were enough, everyone would already be winning. Everyone would be disciplined. Everyone would be successful. But look around. Most people are stuck, not because they don't know what to do, but because they keep negotiating with themselves instead of deciding. They say tomorrow. They say next week. They say when things calm down. And every time they delay, they reinforce an identity of someone who doesn't follow through. Real change doesn't start with emotion. It doesn't start with hype. It doesn't start with inspiration. It starts with a decision. A decision is different from a wish. A decision cuts off alternatives. A decision says, this is who I am now, not this is what I'll try to do. And that's why most people stay exactly where they are, because they never decide. They hope, they want, they think about it, but they don't decide. And without a decision, your brain keeps defaulting to the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. Think about this. Every standard in your life, your income, your health, your confidence, your relationships, is a reflection of what you tolerate, not what you want, not what you dream about, what you tolerate. And if you're honest with yourself, you've been tolerating less than you deserve for a long time. You've been tolerating excuses. You've been tolerating inconsistency. You've been tolerating a version of yourself that shows up strong some days and disappears on others. And deep down, that inconsistency is exhausting you more than hard work ever could. Because here's the brutal truth most people don't want to hear. You are not tired from doing too much. You are tired from living below your standards. You're tired from knowing what you should be doing and not doing it. You're tired from breaking promises to yourself. You're tired from carrying potential you refuse to fully use. And that internal conflict, the gap between who you are and who you know you could be, is where anxiety, frustration, and self-doubt are born. Let me tell you something that might shake you. The strongest version of you is not built when life is easy. It's built when you act without certainty. Confidence does not come before action. It comes because of action. Discipline does not arrive when you feel ready. It is created when you move anyway. Every time you take action despite resistance, you send a signal to your nervous system that says, I am someone who follows through. And over time, that identity becomes unshakable. Most people think they need to fix their mindset before they act. That's backwards. Action creates belief. Action creates momentum. Action creates clarity. You don't think your way into a new life. You move your way into one, and the moment you understand this, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for confidence. You stop waiting for motivation. You become the person who moves first and figures it out along the way. Now listen carefully, because this might be the most important thing you hear today. The life you want is on the other side of decisions you've been avoiding. The discomfort you're running from is the gateway to the strength you're searching for. Growth does not ask for your comfort. It demands your courage. And every day you avoid that discomfort, you train yourself to stay small. But every day you lean into it, even just a little. You expand who you are. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need more information. You don't need another video after this one. What you need is to stop negotiating with your potential. Stop asking, do I feel like it? And start asking, what does the best version of me do now? Because the moment you raise your standard, DS, your behavior is forced to rise to meet them. Standards shape identity. Identity shapes destiny. And here's the part most people miss. Once you truly decide, your brain will resist. Your old habits will fight back. Fear will get louder. Doubt will try to sound logical. That doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're finally doing something right. Resistance is not a stop sign. It's confirmation that you're crossing into unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory is where growth lives. If you stay with me until the end of this video, you're not just going to feel inspired. You're going to understand exactly how to rewire your standards, condition your mindset, and build daily rituals that turn discipline into your default state. Not through hype, but through identity. Not through pressure, but through clarity. Because once you understand how this works, you will never look at motivation the same way again. And this is just the beginning. And now that you understand that motivation is unreliable and decisions shape identity, we have to talk about the real enemy, the invisible one that has quietly controlled your life for years without you realizing it. It's not laziness. It's not lack of talent. It's not even fear itself. It's familiarity. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. Your nervous system would rather keep you in a situation you complain about than push you into a future you can't predict. That's why you keep going back to the same habits, the same routines, the same comfort zones, even when you hate the results they produce. Your brain is wired to protect you, not elevate you. And until you understand that, you'll keep mistaking comfort for safety and avoidance for wisdom. Think about how many times you've told yourself, I'll start when things slow down, or I'll commit when I feel more confident, or I just need the right moment. That moment never comes. Life doesn't pause and hand you clarity. Clarity comes after commitment. And the people you admire, the ones who seem disciplined, focused, unstoppable, they didn't wake up one day feeling ready. They moved while uncertain. They acted while afraid. They decided while uncomfortable. And every time they did, their nervous system adapted. What once felt terrifying became normal. What once felt impossible became routine. That's how standards are built, not through intensity, but through consistency. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking yourself what you want and start asking yourself what you are willing to tolerate. Because whatever you tolerate becomes your life. If you tolerate excuses, you get average results. If you tolerate inconsistency, you get instability. If you tolerate self-betrayal, you lose self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of confidence. You can't think your way into confidence while living in contradiction. Confidence is earned through alignment between what you say matters and how you behave when no one is watching. Most people don't realize this, but discipline is not about willpower. Willpower is temporary. Discipline is about identity. When you see yourself as someone who trains no matter what, you don't debate whether to work out. When you see yourself as someone who keeps promises, you don't negotiate with yourself. The action becomes automatic because it's who you are, and identity is shaped by the evidence you collect. Every small win, every follow-through, every moment you act despite resistance becomes proof. Proof rewires belief. Belief fuels momentum. But here's where it gets uncomfortable and where most people quit. The moment you raise your standards, your environment will test you. People may not understand the new you. Old patterns will try to pull you back. Your mind will replay old stories. Who do you think you are? You've tried before. What if you fail? And you have to understand this clearly. That voice is not intuition. It's conditioning. It's the echo of your past, not a prediction of your future. If you obey it, you stay the same. If you move anyway, you break the pattern. Let me tell you something. Most people never hear. Fear does not mean stop. Fear means you are expanding. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. And the people who change their lives are not fearless. They are committed to a standard that does not bend based on mood, emotion, or circumstance. They don't wait to feel powerful. They act their way into power. Right now, your life is producing results that perfectly match your current standards, not your desires, your standards. If you want a different life, you must be willing to disappoint your old self. You must be willing to let go of the version of you that seeks comfort, approval, and ease. Growth requires separation. Separation from old habits. Separation from old excuses. Separation from the identity that kept you safe. But small, and here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to feel confident and start honoring your word, confidence shows up. The moment you stop chasing motivation and start enforcing standards, motivation follows. The moment you stop waiting for certainty and start moving with commitment, clarity appears. Life rewards motion, not intention. If this feels intense, it's because it's real. Transformation is not gentle. It's honest. It asks you to look at your patterns without flinching. It asks you to take responsibility without blame. And responsibility is not a burden, it's power. The moment you accept that your habits shape your future, you regain control. You stop feeling like life is happening to you and start realizing life is responding to you. And this is where everything begins to shift. When you stop seeing discipline as punishment and start seeing it as self-respect. When you stop seeing discomfort as danger and start seeing it as growth. When you stop negotiating with your potential and start enforcing your standards daily, quietly, relentlessly. Because the truth is, the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with motivation. It's filled with repeated decisions made when no one is watching. And every one of those decisions is shaping who you are becoming. This is not the end. This is the point where most people quit, but also where leaders are forged. At this stage, something subtle but powerful begins to happen if you've been listening closely. You stop seeing change as an event and start seeing it as a practice. You realize that transformation is not built in dramatic moments, but in quiet decisions repeated daily. And this is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about forcing yourself, pushing harder, grinding endlessly. But real discipline is simpler and more demanding than that. It is the daily refusal to abandon yourself. It is choosing alignment over impulse. It is doing what you said you would do long after the emotional surge has faded. And when you live this way long enough, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity every morning before the world has a chance to distract you. You are making a decision whether you realize it or not. You are deciding who you are reinforcing. The old version of you thrives on delay, comfort, and emotional reasoning. The new version of you thrives on standard, structure, and intentional action. And whichever one you feed first each day gets stronger. That's why your rituals matter more than your goals. Goals live in the future. Rituals live in the present. And the present is where identity is built. If you win the morning, you condition your nervous system to expect follow-through. If you drift in the morning, you train yourself to react instead of lead. Most people underestimate how much power they give away by starting their day passively, scrolling, checking messages, absorbing other people's urgency before they've even claimed their own direction. The disciplined individual does the opposite. They move their body before they move their phone. They decide their standards before the world tries to lower them. They engage in at least one act each morning that reinforces self-respect, whether that's training, learning, planning, or executing the hardest task first. This isn't about perfection. It's about patterning. And patterns compound. Your brain is constantly asking one question, who am I? And answers that question based on evidence. Every action is a vote. Skip the work, you vote for inconsistency. Push through resistance, you vote for reliability. Honor your word, you vote for leadership. Over time, the votes stack up and identity solidifies. That's why small actions matter so much more than people think. You're not just doing the task, you're becoming the type of person who does the task. And once that identity locks in, behavior follows automatically. But understand this clearly, there will be days when your emotions are loud and your clarity is quiet. Days when self-doubt resurfaces. Days when old habits whisper seductively. This is not failure, this is maintenance. Growth is not linear. Mastery is not dramatic. The strongest people are not the ones who never fall. They're the ones who don't turn falling into quitting. They don't turn a bad moment into a bad identity. They reset quickly because their standards are non-negotiable. You must stop attaching your self-worth to outcomes and start attaching it to execution. Outcomes fluctuate. Execution builds character. When you judge yourself based on effort, consistency, and integrity instead of results alone, you become resilient. You stop breaking under pressure. You stop panicking during slow progress. You understand that momentum is invisible before it's undeniable. And this understanding keeps you moving when others give up. There is a moment in every transformation where things feel quiet, no applause, no validation, no immediate payoff. This is the testing ground. This is where discipline separates from enthusiasm. This is where identity is either reinforced or abandoned. Most people retreat here, not because it's too hard, but because it's too silent. They crave evidence too soon. But the disciplined individual trusts the process because they trust themselves. They know that if they keep showing up, results have no choice but to follow. And something remarkable happens when you live this way long enough. You stop chasing motivation entirely. You no longer need hype to move. You no longer need pressure to perform. You become internally driven, grounded, calm, dangerous in the quietest way. Your confidence is no longer loud, it's steady, and people can feel it. Not because you announce it, but because your actions are predictable, your standards are clear, and your presence is composed. This is when life starts responding differently. Opportunities appear not because you chased them, but because you became someone who was ready. Respect shows up not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. And the life you once fantasized about begins to look less like a dream and more like a reflection of who you've become. Remember this above all else, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. And standards are enforced daily, quietly, relentlessly. No one is coming to save you. No surge of motivation is required. The only thing that changes your life is the decision you make and keep making when no one is watching. This is how you stop negotiating with your potential. This is how you become disciplined by default. This is how you build a version of yourself that doesn't break under pressure. And once you become that person, there is no going back.